Oh my god, I can't believe it's finally here! The brand new Digivolving Spirits WarGreymon Figure! Right, let's get right down to it! Agumon, wap shinkara! Wait, what? We are not doing warp evolutions anymore? But they're so cool and time-saving! You want to take up as much time as possible with stock footage? So wait, let me get it straight. You're telling me that you want to sacrifice pacing, emotional impact and creativity in order to show off every single evolution sequence for fan-pandering, budget-saving and time-wasting sake? And I have to use a white background, extreme close-ups and gold rings? Fine.
One eternity later.
No. You know what? Cut. Just cut. Screw you, Toei. Let's get on with the review. This is Actar's reviews. From anime to figures and beyond. Hey, this is Actar and you're watching another episode of Actar's Figure Reviews. 10 years ago, I started this channel by reviewing Digivolving action figures, and it's rather poetic that today, 10 years later, we have a brand new line of Digivolving action figures aimed towards adult collectors. Seriously, this figure could not have come at a better time for me because I'm desperately in need for something to restore my faith in the Digimon franchise. And I'm telling you, while this figure does have its fair share of issues, you can tell that they actually put a ton of consideration and effort into producing this. In fact, they really hit you over the head with it. What with all the designer interviews, production material, and advertising. Not to mention, they're really confident of this line's success as they're pumping these out in quick succession. In a short span of time, 3 more after Wargreymon have gone up for pre-order. And if you know me, you'd know that I'm sick and tired of all these franchise anniversaries that seek to exploit our collective nostalgias. It's a half-hearted and devious nostalgia-pandering cash grab, and they don't even bother to hide it. Yeah, I was really cynical about this line as they seem to be doing nothing but rehashing old figures. But no, after Wargreymon and Metal Garurumon, all the other figures are going to be brand spanking new. So we don't have to buy all the same figures all over again. But if there's one figure I want to see them tackle again, it's a transforming Omegamon figure that doesn't disintegrate when you touch it. Whatever the case, this is an absolute dream come true for me. After Roleplay Digivice, this has got to be the next thing that I've been wanting to see the most in terms of Digimon merchandise. Taking the old Digivolving figure concept and using modern day toy making technology and techniques to give them the adult collectible treatment. Now I know that there are a ton of collectors out there who would have preferred normal SH Figuarts figures or DArts figures, and I totally get that. Honest, I do. But personally, I grew up with the Digivolving figures and the association kind of stuck. To me, Digimon figures have to transform. Digivolution was by far one of the coolest things about the Digimon franchise, and the mechanic kind of harkens back to Kamen Rider or Magical Girl transformations, where the hero would get a sudden but temporary boost in power. Being able to recreate that on-screen exhilaration in toy form was just an amazing experience. And this is one of the reasons why I don't bother collecting most of the SH Figuarts or completed PVC figures of the Digimon characters. They're just not complete. Considering the fact that I'm all about accuracy, you'd think that I prefer the action figures. However, in this case, accuracy to me is the ability to recreate the gimmick from the show. Kind of like non-transforming Transformers figures, I just don't get them. Heck, I never bought a Gather Robo figure despite being a huge fan of the franchise until the Dynamic Change figure series came around, precisely because the transformation is such a major aspect of it. But I digress. I've rambled on for far too long, so let's get straight into the review and see how this guy compares to the original Warp Digivolving figure. First off, the box. It's a phenomenally designed box. It's windowless, which means more space for the gorgeous original art by Kenji Watanabe. Die-cast evolution on the top left corner because, yes, there is a ton of die-cast pieces on this figure. More on that later. On the sides, we have the figure in both modes, and on the back, we have more pictures of the figure in both modes, with a short write-up on the line, and a teaser for the next figure in the line, which of course is Metal Garurumon. And for those who are curious, here it is next to the original box. So let's open this up and take a look at the figure inside. Other than the figure itself, the only other thing it comes with is an instruction sheet. While the figure is packaged in Wargreymon mode, let's start off with the Agumon mode, unequivocally the weaker of the two modes. Yeah, I'm still not really a fan, and if you ask me, I think that the original figure pulls off a more convincing Agumon mode. Right off the bat, the proportions are just way off. The head is too small and flat, the eyes are too big, the body is too big, and the shoulders are too big, making it look like he has no neck. And before you say anything, this is as low as the shoulders will go. They are double jointed, so you can take advantage of that to get the shoulders higher or lower. I really should be more upset, but the thing is, pretty much all of these issues can be explained away as necessary sacrifices for a stellar looking Wargreymon mode. The head is small because Wargreymon's torso is smaller. The body is large because they needed to fit in the bigger legs and all of the armor parts. The shoulders are large because they actually managed to retain Wargreymon's orange skin color. So instead of flipping away and becoming the elbows like on the original Warp Digivolving figure, Wargreymon's shoulder armor is used to cover up the orange skin. So taking all of those sacrifices into consideration, I actually think it's still a rather serviceable Agumon mode. Truth be told, there are quite a number of things about this Agumon mode that I really do like. Firstly, the Kibble is kept to an absolute minimum. Shoulder armor aside, we have Wargreymon's orange skin on the back of his elbows and on the underside of his feet, and we have the claws of the Dramon killers under his forearms. But that's pretty much it. I do like the shape of Agumon's forearms much more, and I love the fact that the bottom of the figure is 100% covered up. As you can see, the fit and finish of this figure is absolutely seamless. Everything just lines up perfectly, and because of the extra lip of plastic at the seams, they close up really well and leave absolutely no gaps. Moving on, in terms of build quality, this guy is a solid 10 upon 10. And when I say solid, I mean solid, like literally. Firstly, the plastic is so high quality feeling. I'm not sure if they used ABS for the entire thing or what, but wow, does it feel good in the hand. The matte finish that coats the entire figure just elevates it to a whole new level. Next, because of the aforementioned die cast, it's supremely heavy. You can't see any of the die cast pieces in Agumon mode, but you can certainly feel it, believe me. For this figure, they made a huge deal about utilizing die cast, not only to add detail and prestige, but to give him more stable ball joints. And when I heard about this, I was extremely trepidatious. Well, why? If you know anything about the recent Macross toys by either Bandai or Arcadia/Yamato, you'd know that metal joints always get looser over time. The difference this time is that only the ball joints are made of die cast. Yeah, I know. Balls of steel, yeah. The sockets are not made of die cast, but a flexible PVC plastic. This means that it is able to grip the ball joints extremely firmly, and when I mean extremely, I mean like a vice. Seriously, the ball joints on this guy are insanely tight. Even after transforming him over 20 times and putting him in a myriad of poses, they haven't loosened up one bit. You can color me impressed. For the rest of the joints, they are all really solid too, some more so than others. But that's kinda to the detriment of the figure in a couple of ways, and I'll be talking about that in more detail when we get to Wargreymon mode. And speaking of the joints, onto articulation. The head doesn't move due to the transformation, just like the original, but unlike the original, we have nearly full range of motion everywhere else. The shoulders are on double joints, a ball joint at the body itself, and a hinge joint at the shoulder. There's even a swivel joint below that hinge joint. The articulation is somewhat limited in Agumon mode thanks to this shoulder pad, but you can still get a pretty decent range of movement. The elbows are triple jointed. It can bend at the elbow itself, rotate at the upper arm, and rotate at the forearm. And if that wasn't enough, the Dramon killers are attached to Wargreymon's wrists, so that means that they are separately articulated and you can get an extra ball joint there. Interestingly enough, you can extend this transformation joint at the elbow in order to get an even greater bend, at the cost of lengthening the arm slightly. Note that when extended, even though you get a greater range of movement, there is this weird cutaway that prevents the forearm from rotating fully when the elbow is bent. Though this is more of an issue in Wargreymon mode, as in Agumon mode, you can still use Wargreymon's wrist joints to get full rotation out of Agumon's forearms. As for the legs, they are ball jointed at the thigh, they have triple jointed knees, one hinge joint sandwiched between two rotation joints, and they have ball joints at the feet. If you wanted to, you could even use this transformation joint to get even more movement out of the feet. Alrighty, that's pretty much it for his articulation, and because of how stiff all of the joints are, he can pretty much hold any pose you want him to, despite being supremely top heavy. If you think that's amazing, just wait till we get to Wargreymon mode. And since Toei's not looking right now, let's do things right this time. Agumon, wap shikara! To begin the transformation, we first pull Agumon's head up and rotate this section around. Pop open these side panels, disconnect and fold down this back panel, before slowly unpacking these side panels and swinging them out to the back. Spread the legs out to the side and swing this entire Agumon shell piece all the way to the back. Straighten Agumon's legs and flip the feet around this transformation joint so that the orange is facing up. Rotate the claws around, and we do the same on the other side. Rotate these shin armor pieces down, fold them out, and pack them in to complete Wargreymon's legs. Put your fingernails underneath the Agumon shell pieces and split them apart to reveal Wargreymon's torso. Push the two shell pieces off to the sides on this sliding track and extend them out completely. Connect Wargreymon's torso to the lower half of the body and rotate the arms about this axis to connect them to the main body. At this point, we can collapse all of the Agumon shell pieces to form Wargreymon's backpack. Moving on to the arms, we flip up the shoulder spike, pull out the shoulder pad, extend the elbow joint, and pull out the claws of the Dramon killer while collapsing in the Agumons. Last but not least, we straighten Wargreymon's neck on these double joints and flip up all of his horns. And here we are, the Wargreymon mode. And oh boy, this looks so good! But first things first, that transformation is a pain in the ass, in no uncertain terms. Even though it looks simple and transforms very similarly to the original Warp Digivolving toy, I highly highly recommend you read the instructions beforehand, as there are some rather significant changes between the two. Not only that, even though there are some rather brilliant innovations, including the retracting Agumon claws and flipping feet, there are a number of things that make the transformation far more challenging and frustrating than necessary. Firstly, as I alluded to earlier, the joints are just too damn stiff. The feet in particular require a monumental amount of force in order to get moving. The backpack pieces also somewhat warp before they start to move. The thing is, I know why the joints had to be so stiff. That's because of the lack of locking points on the figure. I don't know if it's because they wanted to reduce the amount of pegs and holes on the figure, but the joints need to be super tight because so many parts don't lock in place. Parts that did lock in place on the original. For instance, on the original figure, the back plate pegs into the back, the shoulder pads clip into place, and the claws peg into the underside of the arm in Agumon mode. On this figure, if these feet transformation joints weren't super tight, they'd be constantly flapping around and moving out of place when posing. While I'm not too worried about the metal ball joints at the moment, there are so many more areas on this figure that are held in place simply by friction hinges and ball joints, places that are integral to the transformation. The shoulder pads, the two halves of the Brave shield, the claws of the Dramon killers, the backpack. You know, while they are holding up great now, it remains to be seen how well these joints hold up. Hopefully, they've managed to improve the lifespan of friction joints in these past 18 years. Another reason why the transformation is so stressful is because of these two side skirt panels. These are absolutely horrendous. While everything else is rock solid, they just had to make these pegs as thin as they possibly could. Even using water-fast method, unless you are extremely careful, these pegs will develop stress marks and eventually break off. One of them did finally break off during the filming of this review. Seeing other reviewers just yank these panels out during the transformation without any care just makes me cringe. They could have made these pegs thicker, they could have made them shorter, or they could have just done away with pegs altogether and made them slots. Anything would have been preferable to this. Can you imagine how much more fragile those pegs would be if they ever made one out of clear plastic? Oh, jokes aside, there is a silver lining though. Neither the transformation nor the structural integrity of either mode seem to be affected by the loss of these pegs, as they don't seem to be essential in holding the side panels in place. But that's more of a testament to the fit and finish of the figure everywhere else. In fact, breaking these pegs off actually make the transformation significantly less stress-inducing. Of course, I don't recommend you intentionally break them, but you don't have to worry too much even if they do break. Just a quick digression, in order to make sure these panels go in and out as smoothly and easily as possible, when transforming the figure back to Agumon mode, make 100% sure that the shell pieces are pushed as far back as they possibly can be. That's how you know you have everything aligned. So yeah, in all honesty, in terms of transformation, it doesn't have the finesse of a Masterpiece Transformers figure. It's more like a transforming SOC or like that recent Miku Roddy figure. But enough of the negatives for now. Just like any other grueling exercise routine, the rewards are well worth it. The Wargreymon mode looks so good! The things that jump out at me right away are the proportions, the sculpting, and the detail. Comparing it with the original Warp Digivolving figure, even though they are roughly the same size, there is no contest. Here is where all of the sacrifices in Agumon mode pay off. We have the smaller torso, we have the bigger legs, and of course, the orange skin. Since the toy is made for adult collectors, all of the safety standards have been thrown out the window and everything on him is sharp. The horns, the shoulder spikes, the claws, and because of this, he just looks sleeker and far more intimidating. Something else that I love is that a lot of the parts are actually cast in the color that they're supposed to be in instead of being painted, like the white claws and the orange skin. What this means is less paint scraping and a higher quality feel. Let's take a look at the sculpt in closer detail, starting with the head. To address the elephant in the room, like the rest of the figure, it's not anime accurate. Far from it. In this regard, I still consider the original Warp Digivolving figure to be more accurate. Here, the head is sharp at the top and rather narrow, and the lines and markings are all in the wrong places. When I first saw the teaser images, I was actually really upset and threw a fit on Facebook until I watched the panel discussion on this toy. In it, the designers talked about how they weren't going for anime accuracy at all, but were trying to create an ideal version of Wargreymon that borrowed design elements from all the different incarnations. While I would have loved it if they had made it more anime accurate, at least I know the rationale behind this design decision. And for all intents and purposes, I think they were really successful. As a non-specific Wargreymon head, it looks phenomenal. Maybe that's why I'm not too upset by some of the less than ideal proportions, like the smallish legs and shin armor, in addition to the fact that sacrifices had to be made to facilitate the transformation. It even manages to best all of the other Wargreymon action figures that I have. The D-Wheel, the D-Art, and yes, the god-awful SH figure arts. That just looks so bad in comparison, doesn't it? Moving swiftly on, the sculpting in all the other areas has been improved as well, my personal favourite parts being the fully detailed fists and forearms. But this Wargreymon figure doesn't only look good, it feels good as well. Just like in Agumon mode, all of the joints in Wargreymon mode are super tight, with metal ball joints being used in his feet and thighs. The joints are so solid that you can pick him up and not realize he is a posable figure. He is that stable. The entire figure's weight can even be supported by holding on to just one foot. If that doesn't convince you, I don't know what will. Now I know I've complained about the joints being too tight for transformation, but for an action figure, they are perfect, because you need to have solid joints in order to support all of that glorious die-cast that is on full display in this mode. And not just any die-cast, no. Meaningful die-cast, show-accurate die-cast, canon die-cast, because all the parts that are supposed to be metal are metal. The head, the entire chest plate, the front skirt armor, and the shin armor are made of solid metal. This is unequivocally my absolute favorite thing about this figure. It not only makes the figure all the more fully furnished, it adds a ton of weight to it, making it feel so high quality, it's unbelievable. Nothing beats the feeling of that cold sting as you run your hands over him. The claws. I only wish they made his claws out of die-cast. But, you know, I guess the chrome works too, and it does add a bit of flair. Yeah, good job, guys. But of course, being a transforming figure, it does have Kibble. This is unavoidable, and surprisingly, there are areas that are handled much better on the original figure. Firstly, we have the huge side skirts that are made up of Agumon's sides. The shin armor no longer wraps around the back of the leg, and we have a ginormous backpack that's made up of all of the Agumon shell pieces. There is no way these figures weren't going to be shell formers, and this is the price that you have to pay for having a fully covered Agumon belly. Unique Toys Peru kill at hiding panels, this is not. But to be fair, it is somewhat mitigated by the Brave Shield that does a great job of covering it up. Speaking of the Brave Shield, yeah, this is kind of the big one. It's the two halves of Agumon's head when seen from the back. Personally, I don't have any issue with this. Maybe it's because I grew up with the original figure, or maybe it's because it's always facing the back. But I personally think it's a necessary sacrifice and doesn't detract from the figure at all. As a matter of fact, did you know that Wargreymon only got his Brave Shields to accommodate the Agumon head Kibble? Yes, they actually modified and based the design of Wargreymon on the transforming figure. That is why the Brave Shield has bone-like structures on the inside. In a weird, poetic way, this is how it was always meant to be. And while we're here, I just like to point out that they actually gave Wargreymon accurate back detail on the inside of Agumon's belly plates. Now that's a nice touch. And finally, in terms of articulation, just like with everything else, Wargreymon Mode is where it truly shines. We first have a double jointed head, up and down, left and right at the top joint, but only forwards and back at the bottom joint. The arm articulation is the same, with a double joint at the shoulders and a triple joint at the elbows. Once again, you can see that strange cutaway that limits the forearm rotation when the elbow is bent. What this means is that you can't get the strap of the Dramon killers facing the right way round. Luckily, the Dramon killers themselves can still be posed because they are attached to its fists that are no longer hindered by the transformation sequence. They have a full range of movement as they are on ball joints. Similarly, the shoulder pads are also on ball joints. For the bottom half of the figure, he doesn't have a waist joint due to the transformation, but we do have unrestricted movement with the metal ball joints at the thigh. The side skirts are no longer attached to the legs and are double jointed. We also have a rotation joint at the top of the thigh, and 2 joints at the knee, 1 hinge and 1 rotational. Agumon's leg joint even adds to the already impressive range. The feet are again on metal ball joints. Last but not least, for his brave shield, aka his wings, they are on a ball joint that itself is on a hinge. So you can pose these in far more expressive ways than you could with the original. They are placed much further back because they are no longer attached to his head, freeing up movement for not only his head but for his arms as well. All in all, this guy is as dynamic, if not more so than some normal action figures, and I am thoroughly impressed. I cannot reiterate how solid all the joints feel and how fun it is to pose him despite him being really top heavy. The only downside is that it's sometimes hard to align the joints. Since the limbs are all cast in orange, it's hard to tell which part of the upper arms or thighs are supposed to be facing forwards. But other than that, no complaints. In conclusion, in my honest opinion, hyperbole aside, I feel that this is the best Wargreymon figure ever produced to date. Even if you aren't a fan of the Kibble or the transforming concept, he just looks phenomenal with all of those sharp points, poses brilliantly with all of that articulation, and handles like no other with those solid joints. Even after transforming him over 20 times in the course of making this review, he is holding up perfectly. I am blown away by the quality, and the die cast just makes the figure all the more amazing. In hand, I can really tell how much effort and love they put into this. Also, it's a great size, being much bigger than any of the previous Wargreymon action figures, matching the original Warp Digivolving figure in terms of size. This means that he'll have no problems fitting in with your other Digivolving figures. To be fair, for what it's worth, the Agumon mode isn't that bad. Of course, it is far from perfect. It doesn't come with any accessories at all, and there are some hiccups with regard to the design, transformation and Kibble, and I hope to see them improve with future releases. Namely, more areas that peg in, less stiff tolerances and less Kibble. As a transforming figure, it's satisfying and it does get more fun each time you transform it, but it could use a little work. As an action figure, it gets top marks from me. If you're in the market for a Wargreymon figure, since none of the action figures are anime accurate anyway, why not get a figure that's 2 figures in one with a premium finish? Does this figure replace the original Warp Digivolving figure? Well, kind of, but I still think the original does many things right and still deserves a place on your shelf. It has a better Agumon mode, is slightly more anime accurate, and manages to have less Kibble than the Digivolving Spirits figure. Whatever the case, they had to start from somewhere, and I'm really glad that they're going to be focusing on new figures after these first 2, meaning to say that veteran collectors won't be forced to rebuy every single figure. But even if they do remake figures, this first figure has shown me that they are giving it their all. Speaking of future releases, it seems that they're going to be releasing one figure every 2 months, and as a fan of transforming Digimon figures, I am beyond hyped. Not only are we getting a ton of figures that we could have only dreamed of all those years ago like Diablomon, Alphamon and Dukemon with a completely different transformation scheme, we are going to be getting figures of all 8 partner Digimon. The icing on the cake, the designers don't give a crap about Tri. These figures are branded as Digimon Adventure products, and all the partner figures will be recreating the child/rookie forms and ultimate/perfect forms, so that fans can reenact the final lineup from the end of Adventure Season 1. The only issue that I have is that they are skipping stages in evolution, going straight from rookie to ultimate, and this kinda doesn't make sense in the context of the show. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The main takeaway is, if you want to see more original figures from this line, buy this one. So, this is Actar saying, What a way to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Actar's reviews, and see you guys in the next episode.